All City draft analyst. Fran, how we doing, man?
I'm doing great. I joined the show, just got in the waiting room right at the best time.
So I promise we don't constantly rip on other draft personalities when you come on the show. It's purely by accident, but we do have to tell our folks nobody better. Check out his draft guide right now. All City Network draft analyst Fran Duffy. We're getting down to brass tacks now. We're left less than 30 days away from this bad boy. You got Adam Schefter reporting Abdul Carter likely to go second overall, kind of circling that prospect from Penn State. Well, what the hell are the New York Giants doing? You've got Shedeur Sanders, who a lot of people think is going to end up with the Giants, yet they're signing Jameis and they're signing Russell Wilson. Hypothetically, if Shedeur Sanders does not go third overall, how far can he fall? And would that be trouble for Arizona as we're trying to burn those kind of players before pick 16?
Yeah, it could be. It definitely could be trouble. I think that the team that you're hoping for is the New Orleans Saints. You kind of lying there in the weeds at 9. I think that's the team where if the Giants don't make that selection at 3, and I'm going to be honest, we were doing a diehard event in Philly. You know, it was last night, Tuesday night, when the news came down about Russell Wilson signing in New York. And, you know, my initial thought went to, okay, one of two things. Either the Cleveland Browns are taking Shedeur Sanders. The Giants think that Shedeur Sanders is going number 2, and they said, all right, well, we're locked out again at quarterback. Or they know they're not taking Shedeur Sanders, right? It's one of those two things. And so I think obviously the Cardinals are hoping it's the former, but it certainly seems like based off reporting that it's going to be the latter now. And now I think you look at New Orleans. And then you talk about trade up candidates. I just don't know, like, especially getting up ahead of the Cardinals at 16. Like, I don't know if there's going to be that urgency for a team to be able to make that move up. You know, it's going to be interesting, but this is something we talked about leaving the combine, that this possibility was on the table.
Seems like maybe Pittsburgh as they don't have a QB1 even on the roster as of right now. They've got Mason Rudolph and they're courting, I guess. I don't know, it's kind of Aaron Rodgers. We just put up this graphic, David, if you could show Fran. We had 5 prospects that we think need to go before the Cardinals pick at 16, including Shedeur. And I guess you could include Cam Ward going 1-1 here. Ashton Jeanty, the 2 tight ends, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, and then any wide receiver who happens to go at the top, whether it's Tetairoa McMillan, Matthew Golden. We just have this so best case scenario. Let's say, you got 6 prospects off the board. The Cardinals are going to have kind of get into that sandbag so they don't have that pick clean before they're there at 16. Do you see that kind of similarly?
Yeah, I mean, I feel really good about 2 of them, right? I feel like Tyler Warren and Ashton Jeanty, feel really good about those guys definitely being off the board. And that's the thing is when you get into these kind of conversations, I've had these in the past. Typically, it's like, all right, you can make a case for why 3 of those 5 players are not on the board, while they would still be on the board and they don't go before the Cardinals. But at the end of the day, like, 15 guys going to get taken, right? And so, 15 players are going to go off the board. It stands to reason that at least 3 or 4 of those players that you list out, and obviously one of them being just a nebulous wide receiver, it feels between like Golden and Tetairoa McMillan that one of those 2 should go off at some point. But yeah, it's a couple of those are certainly going to be up in the air, and it's going to make Monty and JG kind of sweat it out a little bit.
A player that's not on that list plays a premium position, and we're pretty confident the Cardinals won't draft, is Mike Green out of Marshall, who had a dominant pro day. You got guys like Jordan Schultz saying he's got top 15, top 10 kind of rhythm, smoke around him now. Are you buying his hype as a potential top 10 to 12 pick in next month's draft?
Not really. I would say, I mean, look, at the end of the day, a lot of these decisions are going to come outside of the hands of the general manager and the head coach. When you have, especially if a pick that high, if you're talking top 10, top 12, that like ownership is going to have to sign off on that too, in terms of making sure that off-field stuff that is all in the clear. And I think that every team is going to have to make that call on their own. And that's been tough to kind of anticipate which coaching staff and general manager is going to be okay with, not necessarily looking past that, but you know what I mean? Like, are they going to feel confident in making sure that they can make that call? That might be too big of a swing for top 10, top 12, in my opinion.
Can I follow up real quick and say, let's say you had no off the field concerns, right? And you just transferred schools because closer to home or whatever. Is he a top 10 pick in your eye? Like physically, based on his tape, is he a top 10 pick?
No, not for me. I think when you're, I think he's a really good player. Like I do really like the tape. He's extremely violent. I love the way that he attacks offensive linemen. His ability to win at the top of the rush. He's got a couple different moves in his bag. I do think at that size, you're talking just under 6'3", just under 250 pounds, or right around 250. That's not a guy that's like a plus athlete at that size. At least on film for me. I do think that he needs a little bit of runway if he's going to generate power consistently, when I'm watching him on tape. And so I just, to me, that's not a top half of the first round edge rusher. Even in this class, as we've always, couched it. And even in this class, I don't think that that's a situation that, would probably come to pass.
We were talking about this before you got on, and there seems to be a lot of character red flags that are popping up more than I can remember during any draft season, including Green. We just heard one come out about Josh Simmons that was alleged. And then also another one, that's been kind of in that conversation is James Pierce Jr. And maybe we're missing a few, but who's the most alleged bad guy who has the best film?
Can I throw another one at you?
Yeah.
To me, it's Luther Burden Jr. And that's where there's been. I know that Todd McShay just went on his podcast this week and said that there's some stuff in the background there. Bob McGinn with Tyler Dunn's website, he just put out some the anonymous scout quotes on Luther Burden, and some of that matched with what Todd McShay was putting out. So that's one where I'm just like, we might be overthinking that one. It's not like some of these other situations where there's like actual criminal stuff, stuff that's out there, on the record. It's more just like, behind the scenes things where I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to divulge, guys from previous draft classes. Some of the same things that are being said about Luther Burden were said about a lot of players that have come into the NFL in the last 2 or 3 years that have won like offensive rookie of the year, have been like some of the best young players in the NFL at different positions. So, that's not enough, in my opinion, to scare me away from Luther Burden Jr.
We talked about it with Damon before the show. T-Mac, the free fall, at least nationally, continues, where it feels like no mock draft of note, whether it's Daniel Jeremiah or Mel Kiper, they don't have T-Mac going within the top 15, top 17 picks. How do we get to this point where this guy was supposed to be, and especially in a down draft, a consistent top 5 to 7 pick, with a ton of teams, by the way, needing wideouts in the top 15. Now he's looked at as more of like where Jackson Smith and Jigba was drafted at the back half of the first round. How did we get to this point, or is this always the consensus within league circles?
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where we at times in this space, it can be a little bit of an echo chamber when it comes to the NFL draft atmosphere and players and talking about guys, and the same thing, honestly, has occurred with a couple other players in this class. Will Johnson, over the course of the summer into the fall, he's a consensus top 5, top 8 type of pick. He's going to be like a Patrick Surtain Jr. coming out of Alabama. I'm gonna be honest. Like when I watched Will Johnson in the summer, like I didn't see that quality of player, right? Really good player, really good corner, first round corner, but not to that tier, right? And I think you would say that I would say the same thing about T-Mac. I would say the same thing about Tetairoa McMillan, where I'm like, good player, but not a guy that I would put like up on that mantle. Now it just comes into, and I still think this is the case in this class. That it is a little bit of a weaker class at the top. Could he still go in the top 15? I still think that that's possible. I was on with our DLLS crew earlier today, and I said, look, the Dallas Cowboys have consistently been a team that has been willing to look past a subpar athletic profile with their high picks, with the first round pick. And so I don't think they're going to be scared off by Tetairoa McMillan. I don't think they're going to be scared off by, Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama, because he doesn't look great from a testing standpoint. So I do think there's still a chance that McMillan does go in the top 15.
We'll get to the Scat kind of private workout here shortly. That's coming up tomorrow, I guess, here locally in Tempe. But along with our conversation about which players need to go for Cardinals draft success, you would kind of take guys, obviously, like Mason Graham off the board and Travis Hunter, the defensive back, and, all the top prospects, kind of the locks to be top 10 guys.
Yep.
You and my Bo brethren over there, Bo Wolf, you guys kind of talked about some defensive outliers. Like when we start to look at that, who are some more intriguing guys that aren't they're on the peripheral of the top guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think we did a whole show on it. We talked for like over an hour about this on Tuesday, and that's up over on the PHLY YouTube page. And there's a bunch of guys that I think kind of fit this mantle for different reasons, right? I mean, obviously the biggest one is Shamar Stewart, and I know that that's a guy that has been on the forefront of Arizona Cardinals fans' minds. Only 4.5 career sacks. Look, only 3 players drafted in the last decade at the edge rusher position had fewer than 4.5 sacks. Like, think about that. Obum Gwachum, Edmund Robinson, Jesse Luketa was the other one. Ironically,
all
enough.
the elites,
Yeah, they were day 3 guys. None of them, obviously he would be the lowest of any guy in the first round on day 2 of the draft in the last decade. So we just have not seen this low level of production, and it's not just from a sack standpoint. It's also from like run stops and being able to just make impact plays on the ball. And so we dove into like, all right, well, what were some of the markers for players that had lower level of production and low level win rates, pass rush win rates, and the pressure percentages, and what were some of the markers of those guys that still found success? He does hit some of those markers, like in terms of like the length and the explosiveness. Like there are things there are breadcrumbs where you can say, okay, like there's a path to success. I would say overall, it's a very, very tight needle to thread. Without going 20 minutes into it here on this show, that's what I would point our viewers here to go and check out that conversation if you can. But to me, that's a swing I'm letting somebody else take. And I think that there are plenty of people in the league that kind of feel that same way. But as we say, it only takes one. As far as other players, real quickly, I mean, Mike Green with his lack of length, that is certainly a name to come up. The length is a popular one here this year just because of how things went at the combine. But you would say the same things about Jahdae Barron, sub 30-inch arms. Will Johnson, he's got the shortest arms of any 6-foot corner over the last decade. Siobhan Revel, only 15 starts a corner for ECU, under 900 snaps played. It's extremely small sample size. So you go down this list, there are a bunch of really interesting outlier cases in this defensive class, and even on the offensive side as well. But we know we're focused mainly on the defensive side here for the Cardinals.
I'm going to go offense again here because this is the mandatory part of the interview where we talk about Cam Scataboo. Cam Scataboo's pro day coming up, which we unfortunately found out was going to be closed to the media. So we can't go have a slobber fest at ASU later this week. It's going to run a 40. You talked about it last time you were on with us that you thought best case scenario is 3rd round. Is there anything that could change your mind to get him within the top 65 picks? What would he have to run from a 40 standpoint to get you to bump him to round 2? Or is that even possible in your mind?
Johnny, I really appreciate it. It is like a Scataboo level of persistence from you to slowly.
Some would say my interview technique is Scataboo-esque, by the way.
Well, because a couple weeks ago I was like, all right, Fran, I know you said he's probably in the 4th round, but what does he need to do to get to the 3rd round?
Look, notice he's already been bumped up around since we had that conversation too. Now, in all seriousness, what do you think he's going to run, and what would he need to run to get him into the top 50?
I'm going to be honest. The top 50, I think, is a stretch for me. I don't know what he would need to run. It's probably just unrealistic. I mean, I don't know like 4.3 at 220 pounds, right? Like, I just don't think that that's something that he's capable of. I think at the end of the day, a win for Cam Skattebo, if he's in the low 4.5s, like if he's in like 4.53, 4.55, like I would think that would be a win. And that's not like, 4.51 is 50th percentile amongst all running backs drafted in the last decade, right? So like if he were to break 4.5, that would put him above that mark. That would be a huge win in my opinion. So I'm saying, can he get to like 40th percentile? If he can do that, I do think that's a win for Cam Skattebo in his camp.
Real quick follow-up question. Yeah. Best fit around the NFL for Cam Skattebo. If you looked at the big board of teams, what's the best fit for him to immediately come in and have success in an offense?
I'm going to be honest. I think that's one of the things I wrote about him in his profile. I think all 32 teams would love a Cam Skattebo. He is a player where I'm like, yeah, you can carve out a role for a player like this. There are a lot of paths to success because he can help out on the goal line. He could be your short yardage back. He can be an early downs guy. He could chip in on 3rd down. He's going to play special teams, right? Like, so every team could say, yeah, we can get this guy on here. He can play downhill in gap schemes. He can play in a zone scheme. So his scheme versatility is absolutely one of his most valuable assets.
Now that you've had time to kind of think about it, you debunked some of the, typical comps to Cam Skattebo. Have you got any better idea of who he comps well to?
Honestly, to me, there's no other big changes on my end. I would say that once we do get the athletic profile, that's where you'll start to get more of them, right? And that's where we'll start to see, like, okay, who is it? Are we able to make some more of these measurables too? Because right now we've got 5'9.5", we've got 219 pounds. We saw the jumps. So now we can start to project some more of these once we get potentially some shuttles. I think that's where we can really start to take a look. But obviously, the 40 time will go a long way towards that. So my guess is I'll have a handful of comps next week if we get a full athletic profile.
The comp show coming up next week. Real quick before we get you out of here, we talked a little bit about Jahad Campbell, linebacker off ball out of Alabama. He had surgery. We felt like we could kind of put it to bed, and then by hook or by crook, Cardinal fans bringing it back to life, like going to that well one more time. Let's dip our toes. I don't know if we have the graphic or not, Damon, as it relates to, here it is, first round off-ball linebackers. This was through last year, having their fifth-year option picked up. It's a horror show. Not that these guys can't play, but it's just taking an off-ball linebacker in the first round, Fran, we've seen it's just not good value. Then you couple that with the fact that this guy has shoulder surgery after the combine, and then you quadruple the fact that the Cardinals have been a nightmare drafting this position. Like, there's no reality in which they take, knowing JG and Rollis, that they take an off-ball linebacker 16th overall.
Yeah,
right?
And even like looking at it too, like a couple of those check marks, those guys got hurt right afterwards. Shazier obviously had the devastating injury, and then LVE, Leighton Vander Esch, he retired a couple years after this. So that's a good call out from Austin Gale. But I think when you're looking, at that position, the teams have had trouble trying to project those guys moving forward. It's because look, the way that they're deployed in college, it's very difficult sometimes to be able to project them. And so when you're looking at a guy that's got a versatile skill set like Jahad Campbell, a guy that can play down the line, he can do some things from a box set, he can match up with tight ends, he's made plays in zone coverage. Like, he's done things, I would say, Johnny, that at least are projectable. Right. With some of these guys, we've seen them where it's like, all right, they're basically just going to play in the slot, and they're going to be an athlete, and they're going to run, and they're going to chase, and they're going to make plays sideline to sideline. That's not projectable, right? That's something where it's a complete guess. So you're hoping that he's going to develop, in the box in that way. I think when you're looking at Campbell, based on, so compared to some of these other guys, I think he's got a little bit more that make it a little bit of an easier transition.
A month from today, we'll be recapping the 3-day draft, right? April 26th. All this hard work that you put in, we'll finally put a bow on it, and then you'll do, obviously the recap. But of this draft so far, as we sit, that close to it, is any prospect more than any others scream Arizona Cardinal to you? Not just specific to the first round, but just in this entire draft class?
Good question. I keep notes on players where I'm like, all right, like this guy just makes a ton of sense. One player that I think makes a ton of sense, and I've come around on this as a potential option for the Cardinals, is Josh Simmons, the tackle from Ohio State. They love guys with size. They love guys that are violent. They love guys that are explosive and athletic at prize positions. Right. So that's basically, I kind of carve out profiles of all right, here are all the guys that Monty Osford, Jonathan Gannon have taken in the first round, second round, over the course of the entire draft, day 3, the little profiles, on-field profile. Here's what I've got written down for Arizona: big, violent, versatile, explosive, and athletic at a prize position. All right. That's Josh Simmons all day. You couple that with the fact, number one, they've been shopping in that aisle for the last couple of years at Ohio State, right? And they've had some success there with those Buckeyes. And then the other part of it, they just hired his coach in Justin Fry. So they plucked Justin Fry from Columbus. They bring him down to the desert. And now I'm like, all right, like Josh Simmons in the middle of round 1, or maybe that's a trade down scenario as well. That is kind of like a sneaky pick for me, where I'm like, that one would make sense there. I don't know how you guys feel about that one. To me, that's one that is starting to kind of make some sense for me.
That move would make a lot of sense if the Cardinals take a player at 16 and then move up from 47 to come back and grab him. To me, Fran, it would either have to be a trade down from 16 and you take him at the back half of the first, or trade up at the beginning of the second round. I don't think I would be comfortable taking him 16th, but listen, there are far less nightmare scenarios that I can wrap my head around. I mean, if we're talking guards and off-ball linebackers, you lose me, but a tackle from a blue chip program The problem I think with Cardinal fans is just he doesn't have a role right away, and this is a team that's trying to get over the hump, and that will be thinking probably long term.
For whoever drafts Simmons, wherever it is, if it's 16, if it's 32, right? Whoever takes him, I guarantee you when they get to the podium and they talk about it after the draft, it's going to be, if this guy's healthy, we have no shot at him. We're not taking him where we got him, right? So we view this as surplus value. I know he worked out today, and so there's going to be, I think, increased buzz now coming out of the next 48 hours, I think, on Simmons. But that's going to be one that, to me, makes sense for Arizona at 16 as long as the medical checks out.
I want to sneak this one in because I'm looking at our Cards top 100 that we're building based off of all your information, the most thorough, draft prospect database you can find right now at gophnx.com in All City from Fran. You have Michael Williams from Georgia, his comp as Josh Sweat. Would it make sense for the Cardinals to have a player that profiles just like somebody they just signed to a big deal?
I think so. There's actually a couple guys that I think match that profile too. And honestly, the other guy I think is a slam dunk fit for Arizona. And it would go back to your earlier question, Bo. Landon Jackson from Arizona. He also profiles very similarly for me to Josh Sweat. And also he checks a lot of the boxes, I think, for Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort. So he'd be another one when you get to round 2. Maybe that's a short trade up like we were just talking about. But I think when you're looking at both those guys, yeah, I mean, give me all the talented front 7 players for Arizona, right? Regardless of, however much money they just gave to Josh Sweat. I think you want to continue to add as many talented players as possible. I don't think they can be picky about we want to try and compliment this guy. No, let's just get as many of these talented players into the building as possible.
Fun fact, Damon Dog actually approached Landon Jackson on our flight home from the Combine because he's training here and abruptly began just asking him questions about the Arizona Cardinals. So.
Did meet with the Cardinals, Fran. Did in fact meet with the Cardinals.
Fran, he was in first class, front row of the
We were
plane.
in the last row, by the way.
Big dude, as you mentioned, 6'7". Yeah. He just sit there, just came off of an impressive scouting combine performance. Yep. And Damon sitting there firing away questions at him like, "Hey, you meet with the Cardinals?
Crush it this week, Landon."
David, did you sit down in the front row, in the seat with him?
That seat might have been open next to him.
Honestly, it seems like a missed opportunity that I didn't at this point. I should have sat next to him.
They could not have rushed us to the back of the plane.
Yeah, he was probably about to hit that call button. Excuse me, can you get this guy to the back of the plane where he's supposed to be?
Is that seat taken right there?
Hey, now that we're engaged, I'm going to go ahead and sit down. Fran, you're the man. We appreciate you going along with us this week. He's going to be back every single week leading up to the draft. Bo mentioned it. No better draft guide available right now. It's the franchise mode. Our guy Fran Duffy. Check out his work. All City Network. Go PHNX.com. Fran, I'm gonna be speed dial, man. After the Scataboo Pro Day, I'm gonna be texting you.
Hit me up. I'll be here ready to answer, and I'll have some comps next week, guys.
Oh yeah, there's no comp for Fran Duffy. He is one of one. Again, check out his work right now. All City Network.